Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the program. My name is Mark Farzetta. This is the Farzy Show, presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. It's just lovely to have you along for the ride on a Friday edition of the Farzy Show. And it's one thing that does feel good, and I was trying to really break it down here for myself, just so I understood my own mental state going into the weekend. I am very excited for this weekend. I'm very excited to watch football this weekend, and then know that my team's not playing till last. Would you rather just get it out of the way? Because I was going back and forth on this. I would not rather get it out of the way. I would rather this exact match. I'd rather watch the Cowboys. I'd rather watch all the playoffs. I'd rather watch all that and think, at least have it in the back of my mind, that this could mean something to our beloved Philadelphia Eagles. It could possibly mean that this is all a scouting report leading up to Monday night at 8 o'clock when the Eagles cap off the wild card round of the playoffs. Because if they were to play, say, tomorrow, and then I'd have to really mope through the rest of the weekend and Monday night, knowing that my team is no longer a part of the party that is the postseason in the NFL. So I have decided that I am now looking forward to the fact that they play Monday and the idea of getting to watch football throughout the entire weekend, thinking that it's going to matter. I think there's a chance that this is going to matter. So I am going to rest on that laurel for at least a couple days until Monday. But anyway, welcome into the show. We got Dr. Joel Fish joining the program. I've been talking about him all week. The psychology of the slump. He breaks it all down for us. And I ask him a couple of things that we use almost as cliches as fans or media, losing the locker room, things like that, slumps, things like that. What is the psychological aspect of it? Because this is so astounding. I mean, we're talking about since 1986, the Jets in 1986. We haven't seen a team do what the Eagles have done. Have 10 wins and then all of a sudden don't finish with more than 12. Like, that's insane. That's absolutely insane with 6 weeks left to go. Also, not winning your division, having that kind of a record, 10-1 since 1986, and not winning your division, insane with 6 games left to go. So we'll get into the psychology of a slump. We'll get into what it means to lose the locker room and if that has happened here in Philadelphia. Also, what happens when you fall into the proverbial quicksand. That's another common phrase that gets broken down by the good Dr. Joel Fish, who'll be on the show momentarily. We also have Jalen Hurts talking about how he hasn't thrown a football since the Sunday game against the Giants there. I did see him throw yesterday. Now, hold on. Let me not use the word throw. Toss? Loft is probably the better word for it. Because the video that came out yesterday from multiple outlets was Jalen Hurts standing next to a trash can. Now, this was after the press conference. Jalen Hurts is literally standing next to a big old trash can, and he is reaching in it, and he's picking up footballs, and he is lofting those footballs to Marcus Mariota and Tanner McKee, lofting those footballs. To say throw? No. The official injury report had him as a limited participant. We'll let you hear everything he had to say about his finger at his press conference yesterday. The first 70 seconds of his press conference was him talking about the status of his finger. The only positive takeaway is that he's going to play on Monday there. He's going to play, and things are progressing. So that was yesterday. Thursday, he was addressing the media. How far will they progress by Monday? That question is not going to be answered for a couple of days, but we'll let you hear from Jalen Hurts on that. Also, we'll let you hear from Nick Sirianni and his message to the team. And this is a question that a lot of us have. If you have the number one offensive line in all of football, which is what Pro Football Focus ranked the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. And I think most football fans in general, without seeing Pro Football Focus, would say, the Lions are up there and the Eagles are up there. Either way, no matter how you break it down, they have one of the best, if not the best, offensive line in football. So it's certainly been a talking point all year, and people like myself, a lot of people in my audience as well, have talked about the fact that the Eagles, hold on a second, they have this great offensive line. Why don't they run the football? Why don't they run the football if they have this great offensive line? What's going on there? Are they using the offensive line to the best of their ability? Well, what did you know? That question got asked at the press conference yesterday. And Nick Sirianni answered that question. Again, the question, why haven't you been using, or do you feel you've used your offensive line properly when it's the best offensive line in football? Have you relied on that offensive line enough? He offered a 2-minute and 30-second answer on that question. And what I took away from it was he feels, and we'll let you hear not all of it because, good God, it just goes on and on. But we'll let you hear a little, most of it. What I got out of it was, we're fine. Everything's fine. We've been using them properly. No worries there. And they're tired as hell. And when you hear it, I think you'll understand why that was my what I drew from the answer from Nick Sirianni. And then Darius Slay. Let me give you one really good piece of information here. Devontae Smith literally said, count me in. Count me in. So Devontae Smith will be out there Monday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, Darius Slay got some heads turned his direction yesterday when he was addressing the media because he said, and we'll let you hear him, but the bottom line was, yeah, maybe a road game, excuse me, maybe a road game isn't the worst possible thing for us. Maybe being home against, with our Philadelphia Eagle fans, maybe that's not the best thing right now. Maybe the way we're playing, probably better that we're on the road because we really don't need booze right now. I know I'll tell you one thing. I need booze to watch this team play. They might not need the booze to elevate their play going down the line. Something that a lot of people took exception with. To be honest, I thought he said it kind of tongue in cheek. You could make your own. You could draw your own conclusions from it when we hear from him a little bit later in the show. But let's get to Nick Sirianni and all this stuff. Also, there was some news in Tampa. Baker Mayfield has got a whole slew of injuries. He didn't participate in practice yesterday. The Eagles decided, Nick Sirianni, and I like this idea, Nick Sirianni decided to say, hey, you know what? We're going to get away from not having pads on. We're going to say, hey, you know what? No, we're not going to have a walkthrough. We're going to have a practice. We're actually going to have a practice. I love that idea. So he made that change yesterday because I think this team needs all the practice it can get. Put some pads on and all that stuff, go after it a little bit, not hitting necessarily, but just go after it with a little bit more intensity, kind of raise the awareness of what's going on here, especially if the Eagles are still in that mode of, we're going to make the playoffs. Everything's going to be fine when we're in the playoffs, and we'll flip that switch that we're in the playoffs, and now we're in the playoffs, and the switch is flipped. As you guys know, I'm not a big believer in that proverbial switch. The other thing is, if you remember, the Eagles, before we ever knew, after the Cowboys game, that the Eagles had made the switch from Sean Desai to Matt Patricia, the Eagles went to a padded practice instead of having a walkthrough. And then you know what happened after that? They lost. So I don't think this is any big revelation. I just think it's the appropriate thing to do at this time. I think they need every ounce of work they can get before going into this game against Tampa. They need to sharpen their skills as much as possible going into this game against Tampa. So one of the things I thought was interesting was, first and foremost, let's start it off with Nick Sirianni. This is the long answer to the question about whether or not they have used their offensive line properly. What's fascinating about this answer is that he immediately goes to people needing rest. Here's Nick Sirianni yesterday.
Focus, Brady, you guys are the best offensive line. And do you feel like you guys have taken advantage of that strength enough this season offensively?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, obviously, these last couple weeks have not been up to what we want to be able to do. But you look at, I mean, obviously at the end of the year with that extra day, we kind of treated this week like a mini bye. Not this week, but that Monday, like a mini bye. Obviously we didn't get the bye this year, but to be able to have that one extra day to go through some different self-scout things was really important for us. I don't know if anybody ever wants to play the Monday night game, but we looked at it as hey, this is a big time advantage for us, and it'll be an advantage for teams that think it's an advantage for them, and so we use that opportunity to look at that. And you can get into positions where you obviously, again, like I said, we're not right now playing and coaching where we want to be or where we had throughout the year, but we know that in first and second down, what do you really look at in first and second down? You look at yardage and you look at points. We're in the top 10 of both of those for the second year in a row. You look at third down. I think we're number 3 in third down. You look at red zone, we're in the top 10 in red zone. So those are more really important statistical categories that you look at a lot to kind of think about, like, if your numbers sometimes are what they say you are, and so we know we're a top 10 offense. We know we have the people in this building to be that. And again, like I said, we got to just get back to playing like we have for the most part of the year. Again, these last couple weeks, not the most ideal way to go into the playoffs.
Most ideal way to go into the playoffs is what he said there. Okay, so he starts off by talking about the mini bye week. Again, the question is, are you using your offensive line properly? Well, we treated this like a mini bye week. Huh? So that tells me that when he's asked about the offensive line, the first thing that came to mind for him was they're tired. I hate this idea of being tired because week 18, now you're going to the playoffs. You just played 17 games of the season. Everybody's tired. Everybody's got injuries. Why are you shifting to, we treated this week like a mini bye. So your explanation, your excuse of all this is that you were tired? Okay. All right. We're going to take this like an advantage. If you treat it like an advantage, then it's an advantage. All right. Okay. So then what happens if you win this game and then you're on the short week? Does all this fall apart? Because it feels like it kind of falls apart. Mini bye week and a day off. And then he goes into these bragging numbers. These bragging numbers. Oh, I think we're top 10 in this. I think we're top 10 in that. I think we're top 5 in this, top 2 in that. And it's like, dude, all these numbers were amassed when you were a good football team. What about when you were 5 and 6 and you couldn't do anything? What about when you couldn't come up with that put away touchdown? What about when you came up with that giveaway, a Jalen Hurts interception? What about all that? What about when you guys didn't have the right call against Jonathan Gannon's defense when he gave you the ball essentially at their 39-yard line? What about that? You want to talk to me about how great that offensive line is then? Because I've been talking at length about things that haunt me from this season. And it's not about the overall numbers throughout the year because they count, 11 games when you were pretty damn good before the wheels fell off the wagon. The things that haunt me is the clutch situations, the situational football. Perfect example is the one I've been going back to for weeks now. It's the interception from Jalen Hurts, the first interception from Jalen Hurts, looking for Quez Watkins against Seattle. No business throwing that football. No business calling that play. No business why even try to stretch the field in that situation when you should be trusting the offensive line and running the football? Oh, they're tired, though. Oh, they're tired. Okay. What about 5 minutes left on the clock? Jonathan Gannon decides to give you that onside kick, thinking it's a win-win situation. They score fast. I get the ball back. I score again. We go in overtime. Or we even hold them to a field goal. I march down the field. We win. No, I don't even need overtime. And he gives you the ball back at the 39-yard line. You make a big play to A.J. Brown. Cool. And then poop the bed after that because you didn't run the football with a running back. You ran 2 quarterback runs. How is that the best idea? How is that the best idea? And by the way, those weren't even using your offensive line. The first one, I get. All right, see what you can get out of it. Fine. The second one, bonkers. It was a roll to the right. That's not using the offensive line to the best of their ability. It's not exactly putting your players in the best position to make a play. And now you're looking at the end of the season where everybody's tired. They need the extra day. They have a mini bye week, yada, yada, yada. And now all of a sudden you're gonna flip that switch. Make it make sense to me. Make it make sense to me. Because we're not talking about the first 11 games of the season when you look like a pretty damn good football team. Oh, a team that found a way to win all the time, right? And even the concern I had about not controlling any of these games. I mean, you controlled 2 of them. One of them was against Tampa, and absolutely much different Tampa team you're facing this week than you were in week 3. And then the other was against the Miami Dolphins. Cool. But then since week 7, you haven't seen this team control the football team. You've seen them controlled more than them doing the controlling. And I even had some hope after that Dallas Cowboy game. Like, all right, with the schedule they have remaining, they should be able to control some of these games. Supposedly inferior talent, and they controlled nothing. And what's also horrifying is that even if they controlled the game for a half, i.e. the first half against the Giants, they blew it in the second half. And they made it a game where they did not control anymore. So these really impressive numbers from an impressive team at 10-1, that's great. But since then, they've fallen by the wayside a little bit. And can you honestly answer that question by saying, oh, yeah, we've trusted our offensive line. We're this, that in the league and everything. Yeah, okay, great. But most of those numbers were acquired, accumulated, totaled while you were actually doing a pretty damn good job as a football team. What about in those clutch situations? What's the analytic department telling you about that? Because that's the concern. Because that's what playoff football is. I don't think Nick Sirianni needs to be told that. But here we are. Playoffs about to start. Everything's fine. You guys needed rest. You guys just needed some rest. You know, let me say this, because I was on with my buddy Bill Colarulo on the Philly Sports Power Hour yesterday. And, you know, people always say, like, oh, why are you so negative? Anybody in sports, it's not just me in particular, but it's anybody who, you know, was a sports talker. Hey, why are you so negative? Is it negative, or are we just kind of calling it like we see it? Because don't get me wrong, I would love to say that the Eagles are going to go out there and they're going to win, you know, 41-17 over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this defense will look great. Darius Slay's not going to, you know, miss a beat, having not played for a month, over a month. He's not going to miss a beat. He's going to go out there. He's going to be great. Jalen Hurts' finger is going to be just hunky-dory and all that. I'd love to say that. I'd love to say that A.J. Brown, who was not nowhere to be found yesterday, is going to go out there and play. He's going to catch a 60-yard slant. He's going to take a 10-yard slant and take it 60 yards for a touchdown. I'd love to say that. Would you believe me? Because that's the Pauly Pom-Poms guy I talk about. There's a little Pauly Pom-Poms in me. Yeah, I'll say that. But I don't really I'm not experiencing that going into this game against the Buccaneers. And I know that there's a feeling, there's a thought that maybe this is exactly what the Eagles needed to draw the Buccaneers, a team that they can have some confidence against. I think confidence is what's wrong. I think confidence has helped get them to the point that they're at right now. We'll get into that with Dr. Joel Fish in a little bit. Overconfidence is a problem. It's great to be confident. It's not great to be arrogant. We'll lie. We got the playoffs locked up. We can beat these teams, no problem. But you lose. All right. So let's go ahead and cross our fingers that this was all about the Eagles needing rest, because everything's fine. From Nick Sirianni. All right. What about the message to the team? Here's what he had to say. More of, by the way, just to preface it, more of, we're fine. Don't forget that we're good. Don't forget that.
Players reconvene this one.
Yeah, we just talked about our identity, who we are, and like I said, physical, violent. We talked about with the offense. Don't forget you're a top 10 unit these past 2 years, or top 8 unit, or whatever we finished this year in scoring and in offense, total offense. Don't forget that, right? And then special teams has been doing a great job all season long. Just talked about our identity. I don't think you come up with a new message because you get to the playoffs. You come back to who you are, what got you here, and even if you've drifted a little bit from who you are, what got you there, just trying to get yourself back to that moment, and know we can have confidence that we've been here before and are ready to go up there and play a really good team that we're facing this week.
Hey guys, all right. I know we all suck right now, but stay with me. Remember when we were good? Let's do that again. Hey, hold on, no, stay with me. No. We're terrible right now, but. All right. Remember when we were better than terrible? Let's go back to that. Great message to the team. I'll hold off on. Let's get to it now. Yesterday, I told you guys Jalen Hurts lofted footballs at practice. The injury report, a little encouraging with Devontae Smith, even him saying in his locker before practice, hey, count me in. I'm going. Let's go. Count me in. I'm playing against the Buccaneers. Great. Wonderful. Lovely. Jalen Hurts, limited participant at practice yesterday. Lofted footballs, did not throw footballs. What the media was able to see yesterday at practice was him lofting balls. It was him stretching, doing some light jogging. And that's about it. But here he is. First 60 seconds of his press conference yesterday was all about that finger. And here's where he's at.
Be able to perform at the level you expect from yourself Monday night with the finger. I'm talking.
Yeah, just going out there and giving my best and doing my best. I told you it was a day-by-day thing. And getting the preparation in this week, doing everything that I can to lead the guys.
You feel like you'll be able to practice today like normal? Or?
Want to see?
Have you attempted to try and throw?
I have not. Obviously, leaving that game and attempting to go back in that game probably wasn't physically the best idea. Not having much control over the things that I wanted to do, but time will tell with that, and I can assure you everything's progressing in the right way.
So it's improving, you're saying?
Everything's progressing in the right way.
In that game, what was more of the challenge? Was it throwing or was it the ball handling?
I think everything is a challenge when you have a finger out of place. So.
Did it hurt more the next day? You said, in retrospect, you might have not stayed in. Did it hurt more the next day?
Yes.
Yeah, it hurt. It hurt. We all love the Warrior, the guy that's like, gets banged up, goes to the sideline, goes to the medical tent, whatever, gets looked at, and then comes back on the field. Oh, the Warrior, he came back. I don't think I would have sent Jalen Hurts back out. Look, at the time he got the injury, it was still a close game. I think it was 14-10 in Washington and Landover, Maryland, with the Commanders taking on the Cowboys and all that stuff. Okay, that's all, but that's fine. But when your quarterback comes off the field and his finger is making the shape of a Z, possibly not the best idea to put him out there on the football field again. Now, he said he was fine. He could go. He went out there, and now he regretted it. That's a situation where maybe the coaching staff, maybe Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, obviously, should say, why don't you hold on there, buckaroo? You take a seat on the bench for the rest of this game, and we'll get that finger figured out throughout the rest of this game, and you just sit this one out. Okay, we kind of need you at 100% for the playoffs. Kind of need you at 100%. But that didn't happen. We'll see if it ends up really biting the Eagles in the ass by Monday. If he's going to play, but if he can't grip the football, that's going to be bad. He also was wearing gloves yesterday at practice. But yeah, probably a situation where the coaching staff should have saved Jalen Hurts from himself in that situation. As far as the rest of that quote, progressing, I was half kidding yesterday when I said this is going to be like the shoulder, where he said it's going to be good enough. How's the shoulder? Good enough. How's the finger? Good enough. That never came out, but the word yesterday was progressing. It's progressing. So it sounds like it needs a couple of giant steps forward to be ready or close to 100% by Monday. That is worrisome. As far as the rest of the injury report for the Eagles, Reed Blankenship, A.J. Brown, Sidney Brown, of course, did not participate in practice. Reed Blankenship's dealing with a groin injury. Britton Covey and Jalen Hurts, limited participants. Britton Covey, also has a groin injury. Darius Slay, Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift, all full participants. Swift coming back from the illness, Smith coming back from the ankle, and Slay coming back from the knee injury. Which brings me to a little controversy. Darius Slay. First off, I just missed him. I missed the guy. I missed hearing him address the media and always being candid and things like this. Like, Slay, hey, what'd you do to pass the time while you were injured?
How do you pass the time when you're sitting around like that?
How I was passing time?
Yeah.
I go into meetings a little bit, talk a little, come back out, get a little treatment, go back in, talk some more. Try to just make the room kind of feel like I'm still in there, laughing and giggling, crack my jokes, keep the movement exciting.
I know some people don't like him, especially right now. He got the injury, or he got the knee scoped when he did. Also, some people don't like him because of just overall attitude, kind of being footloose, fancy free. I like Darius Slay. I enjoy Darius Slay, and I still think he is a very good corner, despite what some people will say. So he's trying to keep it light. He goes into the locker room, or goes into the meeting room, still talks that ish, walks around a little bit more, talks a little more ish, and then he moves on with his life. But he's catching some flack for this. We have a reputation. Everyone knows the reputation. We're a very passionate, very honest, blunt fan base. As I always say, when people ask me when I travel around and they say, Philly sports fans really that crazy? I say, well, nowadays I say, well, first off, social media should tell you that everybody's crazy. But secondly, the best way I could sum up the Philadelphia fan base is that we are the people, we are your friend that will tell you your butt looks big in those pants. We are the people that will tell you what you're supposed to hear, what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. We're the people that will tell you, yes, you got a boogie hanging from your nose. We will pass the best friend test. We're open and honest. There are people in the past, like Malcolm Jenkins is always the guy that comes to mind with this, that understood that understand that. There's a lot of people that have, but Malcolm Jenkins, I'll never forget. After the Eagles won the Super Bowl, their very next game at home, the following season was against the Atlanta Falcons. And if you remember, the Eagles were playing terrible. And they had to run. It wasn't a Philly special. It was the Philly. All right, because it wasn't at the goal line. Anyway, Nick Foles had to catch another pass to open up the second half of the game, and then things started to get a little bit right. I believe that was open in the second half of the game. But they were playing terrible, and they got booed off the field at halftime. And then they ended up winning that game. Malcolm Jenkins came out afterwards and was asked, hey, what do you think about the boos at halftime? Because what did we give them to cheer for? I would have booed us too. We weren't playing right. Like, they get it. Like, I always say, like, athletes, whenever they get booed, they should say, hey, look, get your you-know-what together. That's what a boo is. You better get it together, that kind of thing. And then sometimes there's a more venomous boo, like probably what Connor Gauthier is going to get when he comes to play the Flyers as a member of the Ducks. There's a more venomous boo. This isn't that, just at least not yet. But some athletes get that, some athletes don't. The Phillies didn't get it in 2009 when Brett Myers allowed, I think it was 2 home runs in the first 2 innings against the Braves in their first game after winning the World Series in 2008. They got booed as well. No, I think it was 2/3 of an inning. Yeah, it was 2/3 of an inning. They got booed. But some players get it, some players don't. I took this to be lighthearted. You guys tell me how you take this from Darius.
Going on the road. I know you'd rather be at home, but you guys getting out of here and going on the road, could that be a good thing?
That might be a good thing right about now, you know what I'm saying, going on the road. So, but even though we did one of the home games for the fans because they deserve it, but it might be a good thing to go on the road, man. Yeah, because, boy, they get the booing fast. So we don't need the booze. So, yeah. So, yeah, but other than that, man, yeah, it's always good to go on the road, go win at somebody else's house.
That's the way you have to look at it. Hey, Nick Sirianni wants to look at this as a mini bye, as if playing on the Monday is an advantage. You look at it as an advantage, it'll be an advantage. Playing on the road, hey, extra added motivation to win in somebody else's house. You know what's better than a mini bye? You know what's better than that? An actual bye. And the Eagles choked that away as the season went on. And even despite horrendous losses, embarrassing losses, to the San Francisco 49ers, where you allowed 6 straight touchdowns, and to the Dallas Cowboys, where you did not score an offensive touchdown. Thank you, Jalen Carter, for your only touchdown of the game. And then losing to Seattle, it was still there. You could still potentially have won. It was set up for you to win, not just your division, but your conference, with the Ravens taking care of business against the San Francisco 49ers the way they did. The red carpet was rolled out, ladies and gentlemen, and you choked it away. But you know what's better than a mini bye, an actual bye? You know what's better than winning on the road? Winning at home in front of the fans that do want to support you. You could joke about booze, but I don't think he's kidding about it. I think he's laughing about the severity of the situation. I think he's laughing about the idea. He's like, yeah, we would get booed. If we came out and we came out flat, God forbid, as a defense, they allowed an opening drive touchdown or a first drive touchdown. God forbid if the Eagles came out as an offense and went 3 and out in their first possession against the Bucs. If that was the home game, which I doubt, that'd be pretty intense. But that's where we're at. That's where this Eagles team is at, unfortunately. I didn't take it as a huge slight. I think he's telling the truth. So as a fan base, as I always refer to it, as the most honest fan base you can have, I don't have a problem with a player being honest with me, because he's exactly right. We would be booing. They'd be on it wouldn't be from jump. We wouldn't boo a playoff team as they ran out of the tunnel. Like, that isn't the case. It would be a short leash, though. And maybe this Eagles team, maybe they are playing a little too tense, playing a little too tight. Maybe that's what's going on right now. Maybe they are in that quicksand, And being on a short leash would only force them into that quicksand a little bit deeper. But he's not wrong. I don't have a problem with it when a player is honest about the fan base. If we're going to be honest as a fan base, I don't have a problem when a player is being honest as well. Now go get a pick six, because I am so done, so through with how they're going to turn it around. And I know Monday we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty between these two teams and matchups and what really works and what doesn't work and what should work and what won't and what to honestly expect from the way this team's going to play. But as of right now, I'm going into this weekend just looking forward to watching football with the idea in the back of my mind that somehow, magically, divine intervention is going to happen and this Eagles team is going to win on Monday night, and all these games that I'm watching will be the scouting report for who the Eagles will play next. That's what I'll be looking at. The word slump is an interesting one, ladies and gentlemen. What is it exactly? Why is it something that, a player or a team could be playing really well, and then all of a sudden they hit that wall and they start spiraling? They go into that quicksand. What is the mentality behind this? I had this conversation yesterday with Dr. Joel Fish about the mentality of the slump and exactly what went down in what goes down in players' minds. And I've talked to players that have worked with Dr. Joel Fish and how much he has helped them kind of understand their own approach and things that might be going wrong in their mechanics, mentally, things like that, to get a better handle on what's going on with their own delivery and their own performance and why they're not performing at the level that they can. Even the mechanics are fine, the physicality is fine. Mentally, why aren't they doing what they once were able to do with great efficiency? Dr. Joel Fish talks about this Philadelphia Eagles team as he joins us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Right now, a man I have known for a very long Dr. Fish, can you believe it's been like 20 years almost since we first met at old WIP Studios there in Bala Cynwyd back in the day?
I knew it was a while ago. 20 years surprises me, but I had more hair at that time, and so did you, Mark.
Yeah, I did. I was fighting the good fight. I will admit, I was fighting the good fight for a while, and you have done tremendous things with athletes both locally in Philadelphia, and you do such an amazing job at the Center for Sports Psychology, and you do a great job as a sports psychologist, breaking this down for people going through slumps, people going through difficult times, and trying to help them be able to pull focus and help them in their needs. You have worked for, stop me if I'm wrong, you've worked for the Flyers, you've worked for the Sixers, you've worked for the Phillies. Have you worked for the Eagles at any point?
I've worked with a lot of players from the Eagles, but never with the organization.
Okay. All right. And you have worked with United States women's field hockey team, soccer team. You have covered it all in your many years of helping athletes.
I've had a chance to work with athletes of all ages and skill levels, still really enjoying it, both at the elite level, Olympic pro level, but also the recreational athlete too. So if you like sport and you like psychology, it's a great field.
When you were going to school and you were studying all this, was it always directed at sports? And if so, what was the kind of response you got from other people in your field?
Well, when I started, this was really outside the mainstream, if you will. When I started, there were 12 graduate programs, more or less, in sports psychology. I went to Wisconsin. They had a psychology program with an expertise in sports psychology. Now there's over 200 programs in sports psychology. So I really was on the front end. And what has become very mainstream now, when I began with the Phillies back in '94, we were one of the first ones to think about mental performance. Now every professional team in baseball, football, all the four major sports have someone like me affiliated with the organization. So it's been really interesting for me to see how the field's grown and become much more mainstream. And it's always because if you ask athletes what percentage of performance is mental, confidence, composure, concentration, communication, teamwork, athletes are always saying performance is largely mental. So teams now understand player development. If sport is largely mental, we need to give some resources in that area, just like we do strength and conditioning, nutrition, and in the X's and O's of the sport.
I don't think I've ever asked you this, but I know you've seen the movie The Natural. What do you make of that scene when they have the guy, losing is a disease, like that guy? What do you make of that scene?
That's brought up to me all the time. The good news is, there's been a lot more positive examples out there.
Sure.
I had to overcome that one for a long time, but over time, more and more pro athletes, and pro athletes set the tone in our culture for level athletes at all levels. You've had the Kevin Loves of the world, the DeMar DeRozans of the world. You've had Olympic Biles, and these athletes talk about mental health and wellness, but also the mental part of the game. So since there's been a lot more positive, if you will, education around this field, it's become much more mainstream. So I don't have to deal with that movie as much as I used to.
It really has been over the last, I don't know what you would put it, just off the top of my head, I would go 3 to 5 years. There, it has been at the forefront, people talking about their mental health and needing to take mental health breaks. And that has to make, it's never easy, but compared to what it was before this movement recently, it's had to make it a little bit easier for people to, open up and seek out help. True or false?
Absolutely. I think it's become mainstream right now, and it's a good change. We have work still to do, and this is in sport, but in our culture in general, to talk about how we're feeling, how we're thinking. I think the word stigma used to be an accurate word when I got into this field. Now, it isn't that anymore. There's just a permission within a locker room, within an organization, in our culture in general, to talk about these things. And I think that's a really positive trend, because athletes, whether they should or shouldn't be, are role models. And a lot of people look at what they do. And so in the world of sport, since it's become more open to talk about how you're feeling, how you're thinking, and that organizations recognize that and do not hold that against anyone. If anything, let's give them resources to be the best they can be. There's been a trickle-down effect on that. And to me, it's been a really positive trend, both in our culture, in sport, and in our society in general.
I wanted to make sure we gave people a good background as to why we're having this conversation, because first off, you do amazing work, and I've talked to athletes that have worked for you. I'm not going to name names, obviously, but they have openly just praised you for how you've been able to help them. And one of the things you're absolutely well earned. When you look at some of these athletes that you have worked with, I know this term slump gets thrown around, and this Eagles team, unfortunately, is going through a slump. So I wanted to talk to you about the kind of psychology behind a slump. I've heard Ryan Howard describe it once in the past. Generally speaking, like when you have it, you're on fire, and then all of a sudden, where does it go? So what happens when a team is red hot, like the Eagles were this season, then all of a sudden they start to hit this wall and they start to go into that unfortunate slump? What is the psychology behind that? When you hear the word slump, what comes to mind?
A slump to me is usually one of three things. It's either physical, a player has an injury and now all of a sudden is in a slump. It's either technical, the Eagles' offensive line are not executing the way they typically do, or it's emotional and psychological, meaning that a team like the Eagles, when they were 10-1, the mindset, especially in fourth quarters, end of the games, we find a way. Look how many times that was quoted, and from the quarterback to different players. When you're in a slump, all of a sudden, fourth quarter, end of the game, you see players start to play a little more tentative. You see uncharacteristic mistakes. That, to me, is what's happening with the Eagles. And interestingly enough, usually it's not all three coming together at the same time: physical, technical, psychological. But when you go 10-1 and then you go 1-5, all of a sudden there's a perfect storm where I think all three parts of that are contributing to what you've seen in terms of the outcomes of these games and losing 5 of 6.
Mm-hmm. When it does turn, because you're obviously not doing surgery there in the room, but when it comes to that mental, I don't want to use the term mental block, but when it comes to something between the ears, so to speak, what can a player do? What can a group of players do? What helps in that scenario? And I'm sure it's a case-by-case basis, but in the general rule, what helps get somebody over a mental hurdle that could be contributing to a slump?
Well, the amazing thing about sport is, we're not dealing with machines. We're not robots. So there's not an exact formula. But when I'm working with a player or a team that's in a slump, there are 4 areas I'm looking at. Individually, let's take a look at certain players who may be underachieving or underachieving in certain situations. What are you feeling? What are you thinking in that moment? And you're trying to develop a game to help them deal with those feelings a little more. So, for example, somebody's thinking, I better not make a mistake. I better not make a mistake. Okay, let's be honest. That's what's happening. So when you're in that situation, let's practice positive self-talk. What if I make it? Positive self-talk. Trust myself. What if? I've done this before. I can do it again. What if? Give me the courage to do the best I can do. So in individual, sometimes it's just a matter of coming up with a plan, self-talk for that moment where they start to feel a little tense, a little tentative. No emotion is going to, I don't want any emotion to be the enemy. I don't want any thought to be the enemy. I'd never say to you or anybody else, don't think this, don't feel this. But this Monday, if the Eagles have the ball first down and 5 yards to go for a touchdown, I want each of those players feeling mentally, I'm in this situation, I know what to do. And if they're having a quote negative emotion, there's going to be a plan to redirect that. So in a slump, you want to look at individuals. In my mind, you want to look at the leadership, what's going on in the locker room, what are the leaders saying? Because the leaders in a slump have even a bigger influence on what their teammates are feeling, what they're thinking. So I'm going to work with the leaders. What message are you putting out when the game is on the line? What are you saying? What are you doing? Which one of your teammates needs an arm around them? Which ones needs, to be challenged? Let's talk through that so that when you're in that situation, we know what to do. You want to look at the coaches, in my opinion. Behavior as a person in the environment. What coaching environment are we creating here? Do we need to tweak the formula a little bit in terms of understanding certain players, holding them accountable? And then you want to look at the team. I work with the team a lot. Look, we came into the season with goals that were bigger than we are. Let's remind ourselves of those goals. Like, what are the actions and behaviors that give us the best chance this Monday night to connect to something that's bigger than we are? We're all in this together. So individuals, leaders, coaches, team, to me, you want to come up with a plan to address those 4 areas, because that increases the chances a team is going to get over a slump, in my opinion.
So the one thing that I go to with a lot of these teams that do go through these slumps is that obviously everyone wants to find a solution. And
Right.
Sometimes they might reach for a quick solution. And that's where I'm going to use this term, and you tell me what you think of it, the term quicksand, where the more you struggle, the more you sink. How do players and how do teams try to avoid that quicksand but still try to solve the problem?
I think there's a tendency, human nature, when something's not going wrong, we have to do more, we have to do more, we have to do more. And like you just said with the quicksand, sometimes you just dig yourself a deeper hole. It takes a lot of confidence on a player's part, on a coach's part, on a team. Sometimes we just want to narrow the focus when you're in a slump, get back to the basics. Sometimes less is more. And so I think there's a tendency to want to make significant changes. Sometimes that's required, but sometimes it's just doubling down on the basics. And that, to me, is the art of coaching. That's the art of leadership, which is really knowing your group and key individuals, which ones really do need more practice to execute certain plays. There's a pattern here. We've got to correct. We've got to fix. Let's practice that. And sometimes it's putting less on the scouting report and just focusing on what we do, and let's do it better. And I think, to me, in my mind, less is oftentimes better when you're in a slump than more. You want to keep it simple. You want to stick to your basic principles so that when you're in that pressure moment, your mind isn't overthinking. It's clear, it's concise. Each player, the unit, has 1 or 2 bullet points that they know that they're trying to execute, not 10 things to remember, 1 or 2. And in a pressure situation, when you've been in a slump, to me, that's how you help confidence, and that's how you help belief. And the other mindset that is different between being 10 and 1 and 1 and 5, in my experience, whether players really admit it or not, is the confidence level and the belief level. At the pro level, there's a 1 or 3% change in that. That's the difference between first down 5 yards to go, we've got them where we want them, as opposed to, oh boy, here we go again. So I'm always trying to work on that mental piece, that 1 to 3% that in sports psychology we call the mental edge.
Okay. Dallas Goedert, Eagles tight end, came out with some interesting comments saying that basically when they made the playoffs, it was not necessarily kick your feet up mentality, but hey, we're in the playoffs. We can coast through the remainder of the season, even though you just got blown out by the 49ers. You got beat up by the Cowboys. You unfortunately lost on the road. We know the story. They lost 5 of 6 to end the season. People refer to that stretch of the season as a gauntlet. Physically, everyone understands physically, everyone understands the toll that could take on a football player's body going through tough opponents like that. But what about the mental aspect of that? We lost to teams that we were supposed to be just as good as, if not better, and we got blown out. by the 49ers, by the Cowboys, lost to a team in Seattle that we should have beaten, barely beat the Giants, lost to the Cardinals, and then lost to the Giants again, or lost to the Giants. What is the mental hurdle that a team needs to get over when you have come up short in some of the biggest matches of the season and then come up short against teams that you were supposed to beat?
I think, again, it's human nature. 10-1, we've clinched the playoffs. First seed is right out for us. Sometimes to exhale a little bit and to lose that mental edge. And that's where, again, to me, individual players, do you see evidence? We got to make sure we're bringing that to that player's attention. Leaders, if they're feeling that, like, what's the message there? Coaches, do we understand it? Do we hold them a little more accountable? Team, like, let's stay focused on the task at hand. I think over the last few weeks, I was looking for one of those areas to take a significant leap, and it didn't happen. And I don't think it's because they don't want it anymore or this or that. I think human nature can sometimes kick that in, and there wasn't the response to overcome that, if you will. I do think, though, that's the difference between good teams and great teams. You look at teams, it's one set of skills, mental skills, to get there. It's another thing to stay there. That's why I'm always looking at those teams like that have been repeat champions. The Patriots, as much as we don't like talking about them, were good year after year after year. That's a different set of skills to me. And that's what separates good from great. And so I think, hopefully, the Eagles have learned some things from the past few weeks. Momentum's a funny thing in football. It's a funny thing. One play, one moment can all of a sudden turn things around. We can't wait for that to happen. We can't rely on that to happen. But mentally, I think it's really important to understand we don't have to, move a mountain here. We just have to execute one play at a time, put a period on the end of that negative momentum, stabilize, something good happens, and now that snowball starts going down the hill in a positive way. There's all kinds of evidence that in football that can happen. There's all kinds of evidence if teams losing the last 3-4 games, then turning it around in the playoffs and developing a positive momentum. We can't assume that's going to happen. We can't rely on that happening. We have to make it happen. But my assumption is that's what's being discussed in the locker room in the Eagles right now as they prepare for Monday night.
A few more for you. At the end of that season, at the end of this regular season, 4 games left, I think you could easily argue they tried to do too much, and they changed their defensive play caller. Essentially, they fired the defensive coordinator with 4 games left in the season. To me, that sent a horrendous message to the locker room. A guy like Hassan Reddick has come out and been critical of that kind of change. What message in your mind does that send? Is it right to call it a panic move? Does it send the wrong message? Because it doesn't seem like it has been turning things around for this Eagle defense, unfortunately.
Whenever you make a significant change like that, there's risk reward. The risk is it doesn't make a difference. And now here we are 4 or 5 weeks later. Now what do we do? The reward is sometimes, again, a lot depends on what's going on in the locker room. That's the key to the thing. Our shaking up the mix at the end of the season can give a spark. There is something to a new voice. There is something in tweaking the formula. There is something sometimes in going to plan B where there's evidence that mentally it snaps people back to attention. It makes it fresh. Remember, that's the dog days of the season. They had the playoffs convinced. Maybe there was an evaluation. We need to shake up the mix a little bit. Risk reward. So far, it looks like a major risk. We're not seeing the reward of that. But again, great teams sometimes are willing to take that risk, to shake up the status quo, if you will, if they feel there's some, if not complacency kicking in, some staleness kicking in. Some people might say there was a bit of fool's gold with that 10-1 record because the Eagles were 1 or 2 plays away from losing 2 or 3 of those games. And the defense has had some issues where, again, if the other team, Kansas City, Buffalo, make a good play to a not good play, our record's very different. So in terms of risk reward, they roll the dice. If it doesn't work, though, you run the risk of creating some kind of if not dissension within the locker room, a place to point a finger at. And if you're asking me again, how do you get over a slump? You want to close all the windows and lock the doors where players are really looking themselves in the mirror and say, what do I need to do to execute better in this moment? What am I feeling? What am I thinking? What do I need to do? And when you make a move like the Eagles did, it just makes it easy to point the finger as opposed to being more accountable when things don't go your way.
One of the last things I have for you here is a dangerous one, because I am not a guy that jumps to the fire the coach type of mentality. I don't have that mentality. I look at players a lot more than I look at coaches, but this seems to be a big coaching problem, not just a coaching problem, but additionally with the hierarchy the Eagles have, it just seems like a big problem here. But when you hear the phrase, the coach has lost the locker room, or the coach has lost, or the manager has lost the clubhouse, whatever the case may be, what comes to mind? What do you think of when you hear that very overused phrase about the voice falling on deaf ears, so to speak?
In my experience, you don't go from 10-1 to 1-5. What's going on here? It's more complicated than just the coach. That's too simplistic an answer here. There's physical, there's technical, there's psychological here. Yes, the coach's role is to deal with the psychology of the players, but I get concerned that firing the coach in this situation becomes too convenient an excuse, if you will. That's not to say that Sirianni and his staff are handling this well. I think there's a whole different set of coaching skills when a team is 10-1, or when you're rebuilding a team like he did, to dealing with a team slump, or dealing with a team where now the expectations are there and you're not meeting them. That's a different set of coaching skills. So he needs to be evaluated or learn some of those skills, perhaps. It's part of his learning curve and growing pains. But I do believe that when you start saying the locker room's tuning him out, he's lost, it's happening too quickly. It's happening too quickly. This is more, in my opinion, an issue of looking at the players first, and the talent and the mentality in the locker room, and then looking at the coaches. At least the way this season has played itself out. Next year, if we're in the same situation, maybe we have a different conversation, but not this year, in my opinion.
I like that. I like the idea of it's got to be a little bit more gradual and just not a falling off a cliff. More than that, one of the things I saw on the website was 101 ways, I believe it was, to be a good sports parent.
I'm going to say terrific sports parent. Better
terrific sports parents. They have young kids, maybe just like mine, soon will be getting into sports. All that.
And the 3 kids. So it's one thing to write about it. Parents still are the most important influence in helping their kids develop a healthy attitude about winning, losing, success, failure, competition. We play the biggest role in that. And if we practice what we preach, not easy to do as a parent, emphasize effort, participation, skill development, do the best we can on the sidelines and be consistent with what we say and then how we act, our kids pick that up. And our kids will have the tools and the skills necessary to navigate the really complicated world that competition is these days. So there's a lot out there we can't control. Let's focus as parents on what we can. And that's rooted in parents understanding what their own attitudes are about winning, losing, success, failure, competition. Because it's another thing to feel a certain way, and then you see your kid up there with the bases loaded, and the umpire makes a bad call. And I've been there. All of a sudden, like I've done, other parents will say to me, "Wow, I can't believe I responded that way. That's not like me. That's out of character." And 9 times out of 10, it is. But there's something about competition that gets us parents really worked up. We can get better at that in terms of the consistency of what we say, what we do, and modeling for our kids how we want them to act.
Yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. People need to check it out. Of course, this is Dr. Joel Fish. You guys can learn a lot from this guy. I know I can. I speak for myself. I know I can learn a lot from this guy. But make sure you guys check out all things that he has written. Check out his website. Check him out as well, because he is definitely helping a lot of people with our sports teams and our sports community as well. Before I let you go, I can't let you go without asking a prediction for Monday. What are you thinking? Eagles, Bucks? Who do you like?
You know what? Now, this is a Philadelphia fan of me right now, and I've grown up, so this is not easy for me to say. But
oh no,
I'm seeing the cup half full here. That I just believe you don't get to be 10-1 by accident. I think there is something to the mindset of a new season. I trust. This is a fan in me. The fabric of the leadership and the talent of certain key guys. I believe that we're going to see that rise to the occasion on Monday. I'm looking for us to play really well. That's the house on it, but I really feel that way.
There you go. Fair enough. Dr. Joel Fish, so great catching up with you, man. Thank you so much for coming on. Continued success to you and all the people that you work with, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Mark. I appreciate
it. Dr. Joel Fish joining the program. Yeah, that man's awesome. Absolutely awesome. It's always interesting because we have these like the locker room and you're interviewing players, and I've certainly been there, and I've interviewed players and coaches and all that stuff. Even if you're in there, you is very difficult to do because they don't want to tell you the truth. You got to kind of read between the lines. They want to drop hints. That's why it was explosive. So interesting to hear Hassan Reddick talk the way he did 2 weeks ago now. That's why it was so incredible to hear what he had been saying, or what he did say. But to hear it from a professional that literally has been breaking it down for 3 decades in Philadelphia and working hand in hand with professional athletes, and hearing the goings-ons behind the scenes and having those people up to him the way that they have. I mean, I talked to a former baseball pitcher recently, and they were just like, this guy saved my career. Just saved my career. Couldn't throw a strike to save life. And then had one conversation with Dr. Joel Fish, and really just something snapped in a good way. I snapped out of a slump because of the conversation. It was just a matter of giving a different perspective to this player, and it helped him tremendously. So definitely check it out. If you guys have the time to check it out, please do so. See the jokes about going down the way. It is. This is weird to me. I'll get to the Game Time app in a second as well. But let me just start it off with you fine people in the chat check. Good morning, Sean. Mike Fuji. Good morning. Mark, good peeps. Happy Wild Card Friday. EAGLES Eagles. Go Birds. I hope you're right. I want to match that excitement. Come. All sorts of problems. Sorry, guys. Sirianni is in charge of my dial-up. Chiriani. Sorry, excuse me. And now the phone's going off again. Relax there, lady. What up, Sean? Everyone's saying nice things. Everyone's cool. Everyone's saying hi. What's going on? They get to leave you maniacs and go south. They won't lose that game down there Monday night. Dallas went down. Went down there last season with everybody saying Brady was going to knock them out. Cowboys blanked them 28-0. Wah, wah. Yeah, that wasn't great. Sean Curry, Nick gets fired. Do we bring in another yes man or a different kind of coach? I still think that the number one thing Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman want is to maintain their status in the pecking order. So, no, I don't see them going and getting Bill Belichick. I don't see them going and getting Jim Harbaugh. I don't think they go get Mike Vrabel. I think they go find another guy that we've barely heard of, if heard of at all, unfortunately. That's the way it goes down. Let's see here. Oh, look, even go say what's up? Go Sixers. Harbaugh or Vrabel? I'd go Harbaugh because I think it'll be better for Jalen Hurts. Take McVay. All right, yeah, sure. I don't think McVay's getting tossed. Just don't understand why we don't have our game closing ball control drives and later in the fourth quarter. Steven, I don't get it either. It's that lack of commitment. I don't get it. We have all the pieces that Reyes. We have all the pieces that took us from 10-1 offense. Yeah. Maybe that helps. All right, hopefully that helps as I engineer the show on the fly. Little play slay, Farzy. That's how I sum it up. Sean Kilrain, you were just coming up with the nicknames. Chiriani and Little Play Slay. Reyes, keep it loose. They're not all doom and gloom like Jacob postgame. Well, good. I want them to stay optimistic. Just not too optimistic. Overconfident and all that stuff. What is that? Clearly, Lynn Hardy's making fun of the team as well. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Dank. See, this is why it's important. This is why it's important to actually let you hear from the sources themselves and not read quotes. Because anybody can make anything sound super negative when they read somebody else's words. Like if I read that quote to you, it'd be like, yeah, we're glad we're going on the road away from our fans. You know what I mean? Like they put that extra BS emphasis on it that doesn't make any sense. I'd rather play it for you. Saw that Johnson said that Hurts has input on the plays and they run the plays that he is comfortable with, and he and Hurts are in lockstep with each other. Oh, Brian Johnson, yeah. Generally speaking, that's how most offenses work. What's troublesome to me is that if you're doing the things that make you what makes you comfortable is not also what makes you better. Like a guy like Nick Foles, who does not have as wide a skill set as Jalen Hurts, he's got to break it down. To get the best version of himself, he's got to play in this little, RPO type of world. He's got to cut the field in half. Instead of having the whole field, he can only have half the field. Jalen Hurts can look at the field, but he's also really good out of the RPO. He might not want to do it, but maybe you need to start hammering that into more. And that's also when I talk about that quad of blame. All right, maybe I fixed the internet. But I talk about that quad of blame when I talk about Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, and Jeffrey Lurie also includes the analytics department. Then I look at Nick Sirianni. Then I also look at Jalen Hurts, or coaching in general. Then Jalen Hurts. Those are four things you don't know where to divide the blame to. Jalen Hurts, as I always say, the quarterback has final say over where that ball ends or where that ball ends up. So make it the right decision, because you're the last person that is reading the defense, that is looking at the defense. And yes, Jalen Hurts can read a defense and deliver the football to where it's supposed to go. You can't lock down on a receiver. My problem with Jalen Hurts isn't so much, you can't read it even. My problem is that he'll lock in on a receiver and telegraph where the ball is going, and that allows people to jump routes. And that ain't good. So, yeah, hopefully that's all a thing of the past. But to your point, Babs, them being on the same page, yeah, that's great, but maybe expand the playbook a little bit. Steven, if you're going to give honesty, then we got to take honesty. If we're going to give honesty, then we got to take honesty. I agree. Practice what you preach. Dish it out. Got to be able to take it. You ever, just real quick before I get to James, there are people in this world, man, that they just love dishing it out, but they can't take it. And then it's like, then we're not playing the same game here. We're not playing the same game. And you're the one that started playing the game. So don't be surprised if I'm ripping you back, baby. James Alexander, I feel like the defense coordinator is going to fail this Eagles team. Yeah, me too. I feel like he has failed this Eagles team. I also thought he was put in a bad position. I feel like the higher-ups made a horrible decision, a last-minute decision, a quicksand decision. Steven, one would think there is a ton of money to be made with the Birds just at -3 going in the game, 3-point underdogs, or 3-point favorites, I'm sorry. I don't think they have covered for a long time. Sean Gillespie, Dr. Fish is speaking common sense. Why? Why can't the Eagles front office realize they're dealing with human beings? What about emotional intelligence? Sean, excellent points. Sean from the top rope. April, 100%. I feel like I am in a kid's IEP meeting, and we're discussing the plan for the year. If only the front office would think ahead. Good God, great points, guys. Sun worshiper? Okay. Sirianni is a warm Pepsi. Not needed, not wanted. Buddy Christ, bless you all. Thank you, Buddy Christ. Did we have a picture of the Virgin Mary? Is that the Virgin Mary and then Buddy Christ? This has never happened on the internet, I don't think. Ladies and gentlemen, look at this. For the people on the podcast, I'm just going back and forth to these profile pictures. All right, that's enough of that. Dank, Nick isn't going anywhere. Just a struggling team. I agree. April, dial up. I think I fixed it. Nick can't call plays. He's a bum. That's true. That's why he doesn't call plays. It's time to get a new set of coaches, says Jeremy. It's time to get a new set of coaches, although I do blame the organization for their failures. Howie, Jeffrey, Analytics Department. Sirianni, Mrs. Steichen. Absolutely. I blame the offense for this team's failure or this team's fall. More excited about the Bills game. Sun worshiper with his or her, I don't know. Tampa 31, Eagles 21. Gross, but I don't think you're wrong. It's too early for that. Sorry, Dank. Farzi, I just called Wi-Fi provider. He should be over in a few days. Thank you. Over in a few. Thank you. Oh, Babs, you're the best. Thank you. Appreciate it. Jacob needs new internet. It's not Jacob. It's me. It's my. I got to do a better position. Do a better job of putting my internet in a better position to be clear. Thanks everybody in the chat. You guys are wonderful. Before I get to our morning rush, let me tell you about the great people at the Game Time app. You want tickets to a game? You want tickets to a sporting event? You want tickets to a Sixers game? Maybe a Flyers game? Maybe you want to boo Cutter Gauthier when it comes to South Philly? Game Time app. Game Time app, ladies and gentlemen. Download the Game Time app to your phone. Use promo code Farzi and get $20 off your first purchase. Last minute ticket deals available. Flash ticket deals available. Even tickets an hour after the event starts for extra huge mega Kajunga savings. Go to the Game Time app. They are fantastic. And how about that Game Time guarantee? You find tickets in the same section, same row for less money. They got you for 110% of the difference. How about that? The Game Time app. It is fantastic. And how about this? All-in pricing, too. So there's no shock, no surprise. Service fee? What? No. All-in pricing, so you know what you're paying, and you also know what you're getting. Because at the Game Time app, you can also view your seat. How incredible is that? Check out the Game Time app. GameTime.co. Check out the Game Time app, ladies and gentlemen. Have yourselves a good time. How about the people at MyBookie? MyBookie.ag. Use promo code Farzi for up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus at MyBookie.ag. Use promo code Farzi, up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus. You want to bet on the Birds? You want to bet on any of the NFL playoffs? Do it at MyBookie, MyBookie.ag. Also, maybe sports isn't your thing. Maybe you don't feel good, confident about betting on the sports world. Maybe the TV world's a little bit better. You can bet on your favorite TV shows, outcomes, characters, storylines, plot twists. Who done it? MyBookie, MyBookie.ag. You know what else you can do? You can also bet on politics. 'Tis the season. ladies and gentlemen. Bet on politics at mybookie.ag. Use promo code Farzi for up to $1,000 redeemable cash bonus. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs. That's phlsportsnation.com. Did the chat check. Let's get into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motor Cars, skymotorcars.com. Just for a rundown of what's going down across the league. 4:30 start time. Browns at Houston. Browns beat a CJ Stroud-less Houston team just a couple of weeks ago. That was the game Amari Cooper had like 256 yards receiving, whatever it was. That's pretty incredible. But Saturday is going to be a pretty interesting day. The young and the old. The last time Joe Flacco won a playoff game, started a playoff game, CJ Stroud was 13 years old. That was 9 years ago. They kick off at 4:30. I'm going to take the Browns on that one because I have to. Because I'm married into a Cleveland Browns family. I married into it. So I kind of have to. It's also my father-in-law's 80th birthday the day they're playing, so they have to win. There's no other choice. This is the fine analysis that I bring to the table. Also, the Miami Dolphins take on the Chiefs at night, 8 o'clock start time. I have a tough time seeing Miami win. It's supposed to be -8 or something like that, and Miami's numbers, when it's even below 40 degrees. Now, we should know better than anybody in Philadelphia, anyone in sports. Philadelphia should know. It doesn't guarantee anything, i.e. the Saints playing against Chip Kelly in his first year and winning that game on the ROAD. Also, Tampa Bay Buccaneers years before that beating the Eagles in South Philly. We should know too well. But how about this? Last 10 games, sub 40 degree weather. Loss. That includes the playoffs for the Miami Dolphins. So it's going to be kind of cold. Looking at -8 breezy weather. That's what it's calling for. 18% chance of precipitation. 50-50. I always pronounce that word correctly. Yeah, so I got the Chiefs winning that game. Although Miami has the ground game. Baby. Anyway, they're going up against a good D-line too. So that's Saturday. So I got Browns winning on the road, and I got KC winning at home. Sunday, Steelers are at Buffalo. I got Buffalo winning that game. Packers at Dallas. The Cowboys are home. They're going to win that game. I hate to say it, but let's go Pack. Go Pack, go. But yeah, Dallas wins that game. And then Rams at Detroit. How about this? Jared Goff against his old team. Matt Stafford against his old team in his old house. Carson Wentz, backup quarterback. Jared Goff 1. Carson Wentz 2. Number of overall picks. And then the big storyline is Matt Stafford returning home. That's going to be a fun one. And then, by the way, okay, so I got the Lions winning that game. And then Philly and Tampa on Monday we'll get into, but I do not have the Eagles winning this game. Too much to correct in too little time. No way. Hold on a second. I just looked up. Hold on. Wait. Jeremy? What's going on? You tell Kristen Bleepin Harris I said hello. Good friend of mine. Good friend of mine for a long time. And Matt Stafford, another number 1 pick. Yeah, absolutely. That's just crazy. That's crazy talk. It's bonkers. It's crazy. Anyway. All right, I got to get this one in because it's venomous here. King Pooty TV, what's up? I'm done bitching about everything that got us here. I will save that till after the game, depending on the outcome. All right, good enough. So yeah, that's the way I'm going to break it down for you guys going forward. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I really hope you guys get to enjoy this weekend. By the way, your Sunday games, 1 o'clock, 4:30, and 8 o'clock start times. The only 8:15 start time, not 8 o'clock start time, is the Eagles and Buccaneers Monday night. That's the only 8:15 regular Monday Night Football start time. So I wish you guys nothing but love and happiness over the weekend. Enjoy football, and then we'll get to the nightcap on Monday night. So yeah, I'll see you guys and talk to you guys again on Monday. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And if anything breaks for the Eagles over the little weekend, I'll try to give you guys some time on here as well, just to give you an instant reaction to it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. It's the Farzy Show presented by MyBookie, mybookie.ag. Appreciate you guys. I'll be back with you guys on Monday, hopefully ahead of an Eagles victory. Have a great rest of your day, everybody.